Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, replaying a difficult conversation with your partner, wondering how a simple disagreement spiraled into something so much bigger? Or maybe you've felt that familiar sting of jealousy, that anxious knot in your stomach when things feel uncertain, and wondered why love, something that's supposed to be beautiful, can sometimes feel so incredibly complicated. If any of this sounds familiar, you are not alone. Navigating the modern landscape of love and relationships is one of the most challenging and yet most rewarding journeys we can undertake. We're constantly balancing our own needs with those of another, managing expectations, and trying to build something lasting in a world full of distractions. But what if the secret to leading in love wasn't found in a new self-help book or a trendy dating strategy, but in an ancient philosophy that has guided leaders and thinkers for over 2,000 years? This is the profound and surprisingly practical wisdom of Stoicism. It might sound unusual at first. When we think of Stoicism, we often picture stone-faced philosophers enduring hardship without flinching, which seems a world away from the passionate, emotional realm of romance. But that's a common misunderstanding. True Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or becoming cold and detached. It's about cultivating an unshakable inner strength, a core of wisdom and virtue that allows you to navigate all of life's ups and downs with clarity and purpose, and that includes your love life. The Stoics were deeply concerned with how to live a good life, a life of meaning and integrity, and they understood that our relationships are central to that pursuit. They offer us a powerful framework not for building walls around our hearts, but for building a foundation so strong that love can flourish safely and authentically upon it. In this video, we are going to explore 25 powerful Stoic lessons specifically designed to help you lead in love. This isn't about manipulation or control, it's about empowerment. It's about learning how to respond instead of react, how to communicate with courage and compassion, and how to build a partnership that is resilient, respectful, and deeply fulfilling. We'll uncover how ancient principles can be applied to modern dilemmas, from handling conflict and dealing with rejection to fostering unwavering trust and maintaining your own identity within a relationship. This journey is about transforming the way you approach love from a place of fear and reactivity to a place of strength and intentional leadership. So, if you're ready to build a love that is not only passionate but also profoundly peaceful and enduring, you are in the right place. Let's begin. Our first lesson takes us directly to the very bedrock of Stoic wisdom, a concept so fundamental that everything else we discuss will be built upon it. This is the dichotomy of control. In simple terms, the Stoics observed that some things in life are within our power and other things are not. What is truly ours? Our own mind, our judgments, our intentions, our values, and the actions we choose to take. Everything else, from the actions of other people to external events and even our own bodily health, lies outside our direct command. Now apply this razor-sharp clarity to the world of love. You can control how honestly you communicate. You can control the effort you put into being kind and attentive. You can control your willingness to listen and understand, but you cannot control your partner's feelings. You cannot control their reactions. You cannot force them to see a situation from your perspective or to change a deeply ingrained habit simply because you want them to. Trying to do so is like standing on the shore and shouting at the ocean waves, demanding they change their rhythm. It is an exercise in utter futility that drains your energy and breeds immense frustration and anxiety. Think about a common scenario. You have a big, important event coming up, and you're hoping your partner will be especially supportive and present. You can control your own preparation and your own attitude. You can even kindly express your hope for their support, but you cannot control whether they have a stressful day at work that leaves them drained. You cannot control whether they remember every single detail you mentioned or if they get caught in traffic and arrive flustered. If your sense of peace and the success of the evening depend entirely on their behaving exactly as you envisioned, you are handing over the reins of your emotional well-being to something outside your control. You are setting yourself up for disappointment. The Stoic shift, the one that leads to true leadership in love, is to focus your energy exclusively on what is yours to manage. Pour your effort into being the best version of yourself in that situation. Be gracious, be understanding, be adaptable. When you release the tight grip on what your partner should do, you replace anxiety with a profound sense of acceptance. You stop trying to manage another adult and start focusing on managing your own responses, which is the only form of control that is both effective and empowering. This isn't passivity, it is the ultimate active stance because it redirects your power to where it can actually make a difference. Building on that foundation of focusing only on what you can control, we arrive at a principle that might initially seem counterintuitive, yet it is perhaps the most transformative for creating profound peace in your relationships. This is the concept of Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." And the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche later captured the spirit of this idea with the powerful declaration, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." In the context of love, Amor Fati is the radical acceptance and active embrace of every single thing that happens within your relationship. It is not mere passive resignation, a sigh of, "Well, I guess this is my lot in life." It is a proactive, heartfelt love for the entire journey, the smooth, joyful stretches and the rocky, difficult paths alike. It is choosing to see every event, especially the challenging ones, not as obstacles to your happiness but as the very raw materials required to build it. Consider how we typically approach hardship in a relationship. An argument erupts over something seemingly small, and our immediate reaction is often to see it as a problem, a failure, a sign that something is wrong. We wish the disagreement had never happened. We resist the discomfort it creates, but Amor Fati invites a complete reframing of that same moment. What if that argument is not a deviation from the path of a healthy relationship, but an essential part of it? What if it is a necessary, even beneficial, event that has been thrown into your fire? This shift in perspective transforms you from a victim of circumstance into an active participant in your own growth. That difficult conversation is no longer a threat. It is an invitation to practice the virtues we discussed. It is an opportunity to practice patience by truly listening instead of formulating your defense. It is a chance to practice courage by speaking your truth with kindness, even when it feels vulnerable. It is a moment to practice justice by seeking to understand your partner's perspective as deeply as your own. When you begin to view relational challenges through this lens, they lose their power to derail you. Instead, they become training grounds for wisdom. Let's make this practical with a few examples. Imagine you and your partner face a significant external stressor like a financial setback. The conventional reaction might be anxiety, blame, or despair, seeing the situation as a purely negative event that is harming your relationship. Amor Fati asks a different question: how can this difficulty serve us? Perhaps this financial pressure is the precise catalyst needed to force you both to have open, honest conversations about money that you've been avoiding for years. It is an opportunity to build a deeper level of teamwork and frugality, strengthening your bond in a way that times of ease never could. Or consider a more personal challenge. You discover a difference in a core value or a dream for the future. The easy path is to see this as irreconcilable, a reason to walk away. Amor Fati challenges you to love this reality too. It asks, how can this divergence help us both grow? Perhaps it will teach you both the art of compromise and the beauty of supporting individual growth within a union. ultimately creating a more authentic and respectful partnership than one based on perfect alignment ever could. Even the end of a relationship, the most painful experience of all, can be met with the spirit of Amor Fati. This does not mean you should love the pain itself, but that you can choose to love what the experience has forged within you. A breakup can be the very event that teaches you your own strength, clarifies what you truly need and value in a partner, and forces a period of self-discovery that leads you to a more whole and capable version of yourself. By embracing Amor Fati, you stop fighting reality. You stop wasting energy wishing things were different and start harnessing that energy to learn, to grow, and to find the hidden value in the present moment exactly as it is. This mindset is the antidote to resentment and regret. It allows you to lead in love not by controlling the story, but by lovingly accepting your role within it and recognizing that every scene, no matter how difficult, is essential to the narrative of your growth. Now, if embracing our fate provides the resilient mindset for love's journey, we need a reliable compass to guide our actions along the way. This brings us to our third and perhaps most vital lesson: leading with virtue, not passion alone. It's a crucial distinction that separates fleeting infatuation from lasting, meaningful love. In the Stoic view, intense passion, that initial spark of attraction and desire, is a wonderful and powerful force. But it is also notoriously volatile, like a sudden storm at sea. It can sweep you off your feet, but it can just as easily capsize your relationship if it's the only thing holding you together. Relying solely on passion is like building a house on sand. When the emotional tides inevitably shift, the entire structure is at risk of collapse. So what then provides the solid ground? The Stoics point to the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These are not abstract philosophical concepts. They are practical, actionable qualities that serve as your internal compass in every interaction with your partner. Wisdom helps you discern what is truly important in a disagreement, separating the core issue from the superficial anger. Courage gives you the strength to have difficult conversations, to be vulnerable, and to set healthy boundaries. Justice calls you to always consider your partner's needs and perspective as equal to your own, fostering true fairness. And temperance guides you to manage your desires and reactions, preventing a moment of frustration from escalating into a hurtful outburst. When you lead with these virtues, you are no longer a slave to your passing emotions. You have a stable foundation from which to act with intention and integrity. Imagine a typical conflict. Your partner says something that stings, and a surge of hot, defensive passion rises within you. The immediate, passion-driven reaction might be to retaliate with a sharp comment, to shut down, or to storm out. But if you pause and consult your virtues, your course of action changes completely. Wisdom asks, what is really happening here? Is he tired, stressed, or did I misunderstand his tone? Courage empowers you to say, what you said hurt me, can we talk about it, instead of attacking. Justice reminds you to listen to their explanation with an open mind. And temperance allows you to take a deep breath, regulating that initial surge of emotion so you can respond thoughtfully rather than react explosively. This is what it means to lead in love. You are navigating the stormy seas of emotion with a steady hand on the compass, ensuring your relationship stays on a course that is respectful, kind, and true. This virtuous approach transforms love from a feeling you simply experience into a craft you actively practice. Passion is the wind in your sails. It provides the energy and the excitement. But virtue is the rudder and the keel. It provides the direction and the stability. Without the rudder, the ship is tossed aimlessly by every gust of wind and wave. With it, you can harness that powerful energy to journey purposefully toward a shared destination. A relationship built on this foundation is not devoid of passion. In fact, it creates the safety and trust that allows passion to flourish more deeply and sustainably. When you know your partner will act with justice even when they're angry, with temperance even when they're tempted, and with courage when things are hard, you can relax into a profound sense of security. You are building something that can withstand not just the occasional squall, but the changing seasons of a lifetime. Following the steady guidance of virtue, we now turn our attention outward to the person standing beside us. This brings us to our fourth lesson, a practice that requires immense courage and honesty, seeing your partner with clear judgment. The Stoics place tremendous importance on the quality of our judgments, understanding that our perception of an event is often more impactful than the event itself. Seneca wisely noted, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This is profoundly true in relationships where we can spend years suffering not because of what our partner actually does, but because of the story we have built around their actions. We are not just seeing our partner, we are constantly interpreting them, layering our own fears, past wounds, and unmet expectations onto their behavior until the real person is obscured by a projection of our own making. Think about a simple, everyday occurrence. Your partner arrives home from work, seems quiet, and retreats to another room without much conversation. The objective fact is their behavior. They are quiet and withdrawn. But our judgment immediately rushes in to create a narrative. One person might judge this as rejection, thinking, "They're clearly upset with me. What did I do wrong?" Another might judge it as neglect, thinking, "They don't care enough to ask about my day." Yet another might attach a negative character judgment, thinking, "They are so moody and difficult." In each case, the suffering is not caused by the quietness itself, but by the judgment we've attached to it. We are reacting to a story we have written in our own mind, a story that may have no basis in our partner's actual experience, which could simply be exhaustion, preoccupation with a work problem, or even concern about a sick relative. This habit of swift, often negative, judgment is a primary source of unnecessary conflict and distance. The Stoic practice here is to learn to suspend that automatic judgment. It is to consciously separate the raw, observable data from our interpretation of it. This is not about becoming coldly clinical or detached from your partner's emotions. On the contrary, it is about creating the space for true empathy to emerge. By withholding judgment, you open a door to curiosity instead of assumption. You move from being a critic who has already decided the meaning of your partner's actions to a compassionate investigator who seeks to understand. This shift is a profound act of leadership in love because it takes responsibility for your own mind. You recognize that your interpretations are your own responsibility to manage and correct. A powerful way to cultivate this clarity is through a simple, written exercise. Take a piece of paper and draw a line down the center. On the left side, write the heading Observable Facts. On the right side, write My Judgment/Stories. Now think of a recent situation that caused tension. Your task is to strictly list only the objective, verifiable facts on the left. For example, fact, they said they would call by 8 p.m. Fact, the clock now reads 10 p.m. Fact, they have not called. Then, on the right side, allow yourself to write down all the judgments and stories that your mind has created. Judgment, they are irresponsible and don't value their commitments. Story, they are probably out having fun without me and have forgotten about me. Story, this is a sign that they are losing interest. The simple act of doing this creates a crucial separation. You see with stark clarity how much of your emotional turmoil is generated by the stories on the right, stories for which you have little to no evidence. You begin to recognize that your partner's action or inaction is just a neutral event until you assign it a meaning. This practice of clear seeing extends beyond moments of conflict to our overall perception of the person we love. Over time, we often stop seeing our partner as a complex, evolving human being and instead see a fixed image, a collection of labels we've created. We see the forgetful one, the messy one, the pessimistic one. These judgments become filters through which we perceive everything they do, confirming our pre-existing beliefs. To counteract this, try another exercise. Write an objective description of your partner as if you were a neutral journalist profiling them for an article. Describe their habits, their communication style, their strengths, and their challenges without using evaluative words like good or bad, right or wrong. Simply observe. You might write, "They often leave dishes by the sink. They are consistently punctual for work meetings. They speak passionately about topics they care about. They become quiet when stressed." This forces you to look again with fresh eyes and see the human being beyond your judgments. It breaks the habit of taking their qualities personally and allows you to accept them as they are, which is the only solid ground from which real love can grow. When you choose to see your partner clearly, you are not ignoring their flaws. You are simply seeing them without the destructive overlay of your own disappointment or fantasy. This clarity is the foundation for genuine acceptance and ultimately for a love that is rooted in reality rather than illusion. Now, with a clearer vision of our partner, we must turn to the art that connects two separate worlds: communication. This brings us to our fifth lesson, which is to communicate with both logic and empathy. Imagine your mind as a chariot pulled by two powerful horses. One horse is your emotion, raw, instinctive, and full of energy. The other is your reason, calm, discerning, and focused on the path ahead. If you let emotion gallop off uncontrolled, the chariot will crash. But if you let reason take the reins, it can guide the powerful energy of emotion toward a constructive destination. This is the Stoic ideal of communication, guided by logos or reason, and tempered by a profound sense of our shared humanity. In the heat of a disagreement, our natural tendency is often to communicate from a place of pure emotional reactivity. We feel hurt, so we lash out with an accusation. We feel defensive, so we interrupt and prepare our counterattack. This type of communication is like throwing gasoline on a small spark. It guarantees a larger, more destructive fire. The Stoic approach asks something far more difficult and far more powerful of us. It asks us to pause, to allow that initial surge of emotion to wash over us without letting it dictate our words. Then, from a place of centered reason, we choose how to respond. This doesn't mean becoming robotic or suppressing what you feel. It means expressing those feelings intelligently. Instead of shouting, "You never listen to me," a global accusation that puts your partner on the defensive, you can use reason to craft a more precise and effective statement. You might say, "I felt hurt when I was telling that story and noticed you were on your phone. I would really value your full attention when we're sharing our days." The first statement is an attack, the second is an expression of a need. One triggers defensiveness, the other invites connection. The empathy component is equally critical and stems directly from the Stoic belief in our common humanity. The Stoics reminded themselves that every person is doing what they believe is right based on their own perspective and their own limited knowledge. When your partner acts in a way that frustrates you, empathy asks you to step into their mental shoes, even for just a moment. Why might a reasonable person act this way? Perhaps their sharp tone isn't about you at all, but is a spillover from a stressful deadline. Maybe their forgetfulness isn't a sign of neglect, but a symptom of being overwhelmed by other responsibilities. This isn't about making excuses for poor behavior. It's about seeking understanding before passing judgment. When you listen with empathy, you are not just waiting for your turn to talk. You are listening to understand their internal world, their fears, and their motivations. This kind of listening is an act of profound respect that immediately de-escalates conflict. It signals that you care more about the relationship than you do about winning the argument. Contrast this with a typical reactive argument. It often follows a predictable, painful pattern. A criticism is met with defensiveness, which leads to contempt, which eventually results in one or both partners shutting down. This cycle erodes trust like acid because with each repetition, you both feel more misunderstood and more alone. Stoic communication breaks this cycle at its very first step. By choosing to respond with logic instead of reacting with raw emotion, you refuse to escalate. By choosing to listen with empathy, you validate your partner's experience even if you don't agree with it. This creates a foundation of psychological safety where difficult topics can be discussed without fear of a volcanic eruption. Trust is not built in the easy, peaceful moments. It is forged in the difficult conversations where you both prove to each other that you can handle conflict with maturity and care. When your partner sees that you can express a grievance calmly and listen to their perspective without attack, they learn that they can be vulnerable with you. They learn that your love is a safe harbor, not a battlefield. This is how you lead in love, by being the first to bring reason to an emotional situation, and by having the courage to seek understanding before demanding to be understood. This brings us to a crucial distinction that lies at the heart of emotional resilience in relationships. The sixth lesson is to manage your emotions, not to be suppressed by them. There is a profound and widespread misunderstanding that Stoicism advocates for a kind of emotional numbness, that to be Stoic is to feel nothing at all. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoics were not aiming for emptiness, they were striving for mastery. They understood that emotions are powerful, natural forces like the weather within us. You cannot stop a storm from coming, but you can learn to navigate it skillfully so you don't get swept away. The goal is not to eliminate emotion, but to prevent emotion from eliminating your reason. The classic Stoic analogy for this is the charioteer and his horses. Think of your mind as the chariot. The horses represent your raw passions and emotions, powerful, spirited, and essential for movement. But if those horses are left untrained and uncontrolled, they will bolt in any direction, driven by fear or impulse, and the chariot will be torn apart. The charioteer, your faculty of reason, holds the reins. His job is not to kill the horses or pretend they don't exist. His role is to guide their immense energy, to direct their power purposefully along the chosen path. In love, our emotional horses can be incredibly strong. The horse of jealousy, the horse of anger, the horse of fear of abandonment. When these animals stampede, they can cause tremendous damage, saying things we don't mean and creating wounds that take a long time to heal. Stoic practice is the daily training of the charioteer, strengthening your reason so you can hold the reins firmly even when the horses are frightened and trying to run wild. So, how do we practically train the charioteer in the heat of the moment? Let's walk through a step-by-step technique you can use the next time a powerful, challenging emotion arises with your partner. The first and most critical step is to create a pause. When you feel that surge of anger or the cold grip of jealousy, your biological impulse is to react immediately. The Stoic intervention is to deliberately interrupt that impulse. This pause can be as simple as taking one deep, conscious breath, or if you need more space, excuse yourself politely by saying, "I need a moment to collect my thoughts. I want to talk about this when I can do it respectfully." This pause is a declaration of independence from your automatic reactions. It is the moment the charioteer grabs the reins before the horses have even left the gate. Once you have created that vital space, the second step is to examine the underlying judgment. Remember, the Stoics taught that it is not the event itself that disturbs us, but our judgment about the event. Your emotion is a signal, a messenger. Instead of blindly obeying the message, ask it what it's trying to tell you. Get curious. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now that is causing this feeling? If you're feeling jealous, the judgment might be, my partner's laughter with that other person means they find them more interesting than me. If you're feeling angry, the judgment might be, they are being deliberately inconsiderate by being late. Shine the light of your reason directly onto that judgment. Is it 100% true? What other, more generous or neutral interpretations are possible? Perhaps your partner's laughter was just a moment of lightheartedness, not a comparison. Perhaps their lateness was caused by an unexpected traffic jam, not a lack of care. By dissecting the judgment, you often find that the emotion is built on a shaky foundation of assumption. The third and final step is to choose a rational response. Now that you have paused and examined the judgment, you are no longer a puppet of your emotion. You have agency. You can decide how you want to act in a way that aligns with your virtues and the health of your relationship. Instead of snapping with accusatory jealousy, you might choose to respond with vulnerable honesty later. I felt a little insecure when I saw you talking so animatedly with your colleague. I think it just triggered my own fear of not being enough. Can we talk about that? Instead of unleashing anger about their lateness, you might choose to say, I was getting worried when you were late. In the future, a quick text would help me feel more at ease. This chosen response is empowered, constructive, and rooted in your own values. It addresses the real need beneath the surface emotion without the destructive collateral damage of a raw reaction. This three-step process, pause, examine, choose, is the practical mechanics of leading in love. It transforms you from someone who is blindsided by emotional storms into someone who can stand calmly in the rain, understanding that the storm will pass and making wise decisions about where to seek shelter until it does. Having learned to manage the emotional storms within, we can now turn our gaze upward to gain a vantage point that can fundamentally alter our entire experience of love. This brings us to our seventh lesson, practicing the view from above. This is a profound Stoic meditation technique that, when applied to your relationship, acts like a mental zoom-out button, instantly shrinking what feels like an overwhelming problem down to its true, manageable size. The Stoics, including Marcus Aurelius, would regularly engage in this exercise to remind themselves of their place in the vast cosmos. They would envision the earth from high above, seeing the sprawling cities as mere dots, the oceans as puddles, and all of human history as a fleeting moment. From this cosmic perspective, our personal dramas, no matter how intense they feel, are revealed in their proper proportion. Now, apply this breathtaking shift in scale to a moment of conflict in your relationship. You and your partner are locked in a heated argument about something that, in the grand scheme of things, is remarkably small. A forgotten chore, a careless comment, a difference of opinion on a trivial matter. In the confined space of your living room, this disagreement can feel all-consuming, a major crisis that threatens the very foundation of your connection. Your heart races, your focus narrows, and the problem swells to fill your entire field of vision. This is the moment to invoke the view from above. Close your eyes for just a few seconds and imagine pulling your perspective back high above your home. See your street, then your town, then your country, until the entire planet is a beautiful blue marble hanging in the immense black silence of space. On that tiny planet, in one specific country, in one particular city, on one small street, inside one room, are two people having a disagreement. How significant does that forgotten chore seem now? How large does that careless comment appear from 1,000 miles up? This exercise doesn't dismiss your feelings as invalid. Instead, it liberates you from their tyranny by offering the gift of proportion. It reminds you that this conflict is a single, tiny thread in the enormous tapestry of your shared life. The immediate benefit of this practice is the evaporation of pettiness. So many of the conflicts that erode relationships are not about fundamental betrayals or deep incompatibilities. They are about minor irritations that we have allowed to become inflated. The view from above is the perfect antidote to this inflation. It helps you distinguish between a genuine wound that needs careful attention and a momentary annoyance that is best released with a sigh and a smile. When you consciously adopt this perspective, you find it much harder to stay invested in being right about something that, from a cosmic viewpoint, is utterly insignificant. You are able to let go of the need to win the argument and instead focus on preserving the peace, because you see the relationship itself as the precious, fragile thing that it is, a tiny flicker of connection in an unimaginably vast universe. Beyond minimizing grievances, this practice also cultivates a deep and humbling sense of gratitude. As you gaze down at that imaginary earth, consider the astronomical unlikelihood of your relationship. Out of billions of people across centuries of time, your path crossed with this one specific person. You found each other, connected, and chose to build a life together. From the cosmic view, this is nothing short of a miracle. The very fact that you have someone to love and who loves you in return is a stroke of incredible fortune. When you're annoyed that they left their socks on the floor, it's easy to forget this miracle. But when you see your lives together as a brief, precious encounter between two specks of stardust, gratitude naturally swells up. The focus shifts from what they did wrong to the profound gift of their presence in your life at all. This gratitude becomes a powerful force that can instantly dissolve resentment and replace it with a renewed sense of wonder and appreciation for the shared journey you are on. Finally, the view from above serves as a powerful tool for clarifying your values. When you imagine looking back on your life from your final moments or from the perspective of a century from now, what will truly matter? You will not reminisce about the time you won an argument over who was supposed to take out the trash. You will not cherish the memory of holding a grudge for a week over a thoughtless remark. What you will remember, what will define the meaning of your life, is the quality of your love. You will remember the laughter, the comfort, the support during hard times, the feeling of being truly seen and accepted by another human being. This meditation forces that long view perspective into the present moment. It asks you, is this current issue, this thing I'm so upset about, something that will matter on my deathbed? If the answer is no, and it almost always is, then you have your guidance. You are reminded that the ultimate purpose of your relationship is not to be perfect or conflict-free, but to be a source of love, growth, and shared meaning. By regularly practicing the view from above, you train yourself to lead in love from a place of wisdom, always prioritizing the profound connection over the petty conflict, and forever remembering the incredible privilege it is to love and be loved in this vast, mysterious cosmos. This profound shift in perspective from the cosmic to the intimately personal leads us directly to one of the most poignant and powerful practices in the Stoic toolkit. Our eighth lesson is to embrace impermanence as a way to truly cherish the present. This draws from the concept of memento mori, a Latin phrase that translates to "remember you must die." At first glance, applying this to love might seem dark or even counterproductive. Why would we want to think about loss when we are trying to build something lasting? But the Stoic intention is not to cultivate fear or morbidity. It is to ignite a fierce and grateful appreciation for the preciousness of life and of every single moment we are granted with those we love. It is the ultimate antidote to taking our partners for granted. We have a natural, almost automatic tendency to operate under the assumption of continuity. We assume our partner will be there tomorrow, next week, next year. We assume we will have time for that conversation, time for that trip, time to show our appreciation later. This assumption is the breeding ground for complacency. It's why we so easily get caught up in the trivial frustrations of daily life, allowing minor annoyances to overshadow the monumental fact that we are sharing our lives with someone we care about. Memento mori shatters this illusion of endless time. It is not a threat. It is a clarion call to wake up to the reality that every interaction, every mundane Tuesday evening, every quiet breakfast together is a finite and non-renewable resource. When you truly internalize that this day, this conversation, this embrace could be your last, the quality of your attention shifts dramatically. Consider the simple act of saying goodbye in the morning. For many couples, this can become a rushed, almost automatic ritual. A quick peck on the cheek while grabbing keys and heading out the door, minds already racing toward the day's demand. Now imagine infusing that same moment with the conscious awareness of memento mori. What if you paused for just 3 extra seconds, looked into your partner's eyes and truly saw them? What if you held the hug a moment longer, feeling the reality of their presence, and considered the possibility, however remote, that this could be the last time you ever do this? This is not a thought designed to create anxiety, but to create depth. It transforms a habitual gesture into a profound act of connection. That brief moment becomes charged with meaning, with gratitude, with love. The trivial worry about being 5 minutes late to work suddenly seems insignificant compared to the sacred act of honoring your connection. This practice has a remarkable way of sorting your priorities in real time. When you are tempted to nurse a grudge from an argument the night before, the reminder of impermanence asks you a sobering question. Is this how I want to spend what could be our last day together? It doesn't mean you ignore real issues, but it forces you to approach them from a place of love rather than ego. The goal of the discussion shifts from proving you were right to restoring connection and understanding, because you recognize that time for reconciliation is not guaranteed. It encourages you to be the first to offer the olive branch, to forgive the small transgressions quickly, and to express your appreciation openly and often. The words, "I love you," cease to be a routine phrase and become a genuine gift, offered with the full understanding of its fragility and value. This mindset also teaches us to find the extraordinary within the ordinary. A quiet evening spent reading in the same room, the sound of your partner humming in the kitchen, the way they laugh at a bad joke. These are the threads that weave the fabric of a shared life. Under the normal assumption of continuity, these moments can fade into the background, becoming the unnoticed wallpaper of your relationship. But when viewed through the lens of memento mori, each one shines with a special luminosity. You become a collector of these small, perfect moments. You learn to savor them as they happen, storing them not just in your memory, but in your heart as a treasure against an uncertain future. This is how embracing impermanence paradoxically leads to a more secure love. It is a love that is actively nurtured and appreciated in the present moment, rather than a love that is assumed to exist based on the promise of a future that is not promised to anyone. So, the challenge of this lesson is not to live in fear of loss, but to let the possibility of loss be your teacher in the art of profound appreciation. It is to hug your partner today as if it could be the last, to listen to their story with your full attention, to let the minor irritations dissolve in the face of the major miracle of your togetherness. By remembering that everything ends, we are gifted with the clarity to experience the breathtaking beauty of what is happening right now. This conscious cherishing is the deepest form of leadership in love, because it ensures that no matter what the future holds, you will have lived and loved with your eyes and your heart wide open, leaving no room for the regret of a love that was only fully appreciated in its absence. This profound appreciation for the present moment, rooted in the awareness of impermanence, naturally leads us to confront one of the most fundamental sources of insecurity in relationships, where we place our sense of self-worth. Our ninth lesson is perhaps the most liberating of all, a true cornerstone for leading in love. Your worth is not defined by their love. In the Stoic framework, this is an application of their most core principle, that our essential value is determined not by external events or the opinions of others, but solely by our own character and the integrity of our actions. A partner's affection, their attention, their praise, or even their withdrawal of these things are classified as preferred indifference. They are things we may naturally desire and enjoy, but they have no power to add to or subtract from our fundamental moral worth. Your value is an internal production, built brick by brick through your own choices to act with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Consider the alternative, which is the default setting for many of us. We fall into the trap of outsourcing our self-esteem. We look to our partner as a mirror, hoping to see a reflection of someone who is lovable, desirable, and enough. When the reflection is positive, when they are affectionate, attentive, and approving, we feel strong, confident, and secure. But when that mirror reflects back distance, criticism, or simple preoccupation, our entire sense of self can crumble. We become emotional yo-yos, our mood and self-worth fluctuating with the changing winds of our partner's behavior. This creates a toxic dependency, a relational dynamic where you are not a partner but a supplicant, constantly seeking validation to feel okay. This neediness is palpable and, ironically, is one of the quickest ways to erode the very attraction you are trying to secure. It places an immense, unfair burden on your partner to be the sole source of your emotional stability. The Stoic shift is to reclaim the project of your self-worth entirely. It is to build an unshakable inner citadel, as the Stoics called it, founded on your own virtues. Ask yourself this crucial question: if I were alone, what would make me a good person? The answers have nothing to do with being in a relationship. You would be a good person if you were honest in your dealings, courageous in the face of challenges, disciplined in your pursuits, and compassionate toward others. Your value is demonstrated when you keep a promise to yourself, when you work hard on a meaningful goal, when you show kindness to a stranger, when you choose patience in a frustrating situation. These are the actions that build authentic self-esteem. When you know, deep in your bones, that you are a person of character regardless of your relationship status, you step into any partnership from a position of wholeness, not lack. This internal foundation transforms your approach to love in three profound ways. First, it makes you a more secure and therefore more attractive partner. Security is not about arrogance or boastfulness. It is a quiet, grounded confidence that comes from self-respect. When you know your own worth, you don't need your partner to constantly prove it to you. You don't need to fish for compliments or panic if they want to spend an evening with friends. You can give them space without interpreting it as rejection, because your sense of okayness does not depend on their constant attention. This emotional independence is incredibly attractive because it is the essence of strength. It communicates that you are with your partner not because you need them to feel complete, but because you choose them to share your already complete life. Second, this self-defined worth prevents toxic dependency and the controlling behaviors that stem from it. When your self-worth is tied to your partner, any threat to the relationship feels like a threat to your very existence. This fear can manifest as jealousy, possessiveness, and attempts to control who they see, what they do, and how they feel. You might become a people pleaser, sacrificing your own needs and boundaries in a desperate attempt to keep them happy and close. A relationship built on this dynamic is a cage, not a connection. But when your worth is internally secured, you can love from a place of freedom. You can allow your partner to be their own separate person, with their own friends, interests, and inner world, because their individuality does not threaten your core identity. You can set healthy boundaries and communicate your needs clearly, not as desperate demands, but as respectful expressions of your values. This creates a climate of trust and mutual respect where love can breathe and grow. Finally, and most importantly, this lesson is the prerequisite for building a relationship of two whole individuals choosing each other, rather than two halves trying to become a whole. The former is a conscious alliance, the latter is a codependent merger. When two people who are already secure in their own worth come together, they create something far greater than the sum of its parts. They are not looking for someone to fill their voids, they are bringing their full, rich selves to the table to co-create a shared life. They can disagree without it shattering their self-image. They can support each other's growth without feeling threatened by it. They can face challenges as a team because each individual's strength reinforces the others. This is the ultimate expression of leading in love. It means leading your own life with such virtue and purpose that you have an abundance of love to offer, not a deficit that needs to be filled. You stop asking, "Do they love me enough?" and start asking, "Am I bringing my best self to this partnership?" This shift in focus from external validation to internal virtue is the key that unlocks a love that is not fragile and needy, but resilient, free, and truly empowering. Building upon the foundation of knowing your own worth, we now turn to a practice that may initially sound contradictory to a happy relationship, yet it is one of the most powerful tools for ensuring its long-term health. This is our 10th lesson, strategically preparing for challenges through the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. At its heart, this is the disciplined exercise of negative visualization. It involves calmly and rationally contemplating the potential hardships and losses that could befall you, not to descend into anxiety or pessimism, but to build an incredible psychological immunity. In the context of love, this means intentionally imagining scenarios like serious misunderstandings, periods of emotional distance, financial stress, illness, or even the ultimate end of the relationship itself. The immediate reaction for many is to reject this idea entirely. We're often taught to focus on the positive, to visualize success and happiness. Why would we willingly think about things going wrong? The Stoic answer is profound because reality does not care about our avoidance. Difficulties are an inevitable part of any human endeavor, and love is no exception. By refusing to consider these possibilities, we live in a fragile fantasy. We are like a soldier who marches into battle believing they are invincible, only to be shattered by the first sign of conflict. Premeditatio malorum is the essential training that fortifies the mind before the battle begins. It is not an invitation to worry, it is a vaccination against future shock. A vaccine introduces a small, controlled dose of a pathogen to teach the body how to defend itself. Similarly, by introducing a controlled dose of a challenging scenario into your mind, you are giving your emotional immune system a chance to develop the antibodies of resilience, patience, and perspective. Let's make this concrete. Set aside a few quiet moments, not in a state of fear, but with the calm curiosity of a strategist planning for contingencies. Mentally walk through a specific potential challenge. For instance, imagine that you and your partner have a significant misunderstanding that leads to a period of cold silence. Don't just skim over the idea, truly immerse yourself in the details. Imagine the feeling of tension in your home, the awkwardness of shared meals, the sting of unspoken words. Now here is the crucial Stoic shift. Instead of letting this vision paralyze you, use it as a training ground for your virtues. Ask yourself, if this were to happen, how could I respond with wisdom? How could I find the courage to initiate a conversation? How could I practice justice by seeking to understand their perspective before demanding they understand mine? How could temperance guide me to avoid escalating the situation with harsh words? This mental rehearsal is invaluable. When a real conflict arises, it will not feel like a shocking, unprecedented catastrophe. It will feel like a scenario you have already navigated in your mind, and you will have a pre-built framework for a virtuous response, drastically reducing the panic and reactivity that often make conflicts worse. This practice also has a beautiful, paradoxical side effect. It dramatically deepens your gratitude for the present state of your relationship. By consciously contemplating the absence of something, we come to appreciate its presence with far greater intensity. It's the psychological equivalent of the old saying that you never know what you have until it's gone. Premeditatio malorum allows you to know what you have before it's gone. After you've spent time sincerely imagining what life would be like if your partner were no longer by your side, the next time you see them walk through the door, your perception is transformed. That simple, everyday event is suddenly illuminated. The minor annoyance you felt about them leaving a dish in the sink is instantly dwarfed by the overwhelming gratitude that they are here, alive, and sharing their life with you. This practice systematically dismantles the taking-for-granted mechanism that can quietly erode long-term relationships. It turns ordinary moments into gifts because you have vividly faced the reality that they are not guaranteed. The key to doing this exercise effectively and not letting it spiral into unhealthy anxiety is to always bring it back to the bedrock Stoic principle, the dichotomy of control. As you visualize these challenging scenarios, continually ask yourself, what aspects of this situation would be within my control? You cannot control your partner's actions or feelings, but you can always control your own response. You can control your commitment to communicating with respect. You can control your decision to listen. You can control your effort to understand. By focusing your premeditation on your own potential virtuous actions, you are not preparing to control the outcome. You are preparing to control yourself, no matter what the outcome may be. This is the source of true resilience. A relationship fortified by premeditatio malorum is not a relationship that is afraid of the future. It is a relationship with two people who have looked into the abyss of potential hardship together in their own minds and have made a conscious choice to face whatever may come with courage, wisdom, and a profound appreciation for the precious connection they are actively protecting in the here and now. This brings us to a principle that can fundamentally alter your entire relationship with difficulty, transforming moments of pain into catalysts for profound personal growth. Our 11th lesson is to actively find the opportunity hidden within every single relationship setback. The Stoics had a powerful and empowering view of obstacles. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not just optimistic thinking, it is a radical reframing of reality. An obstacle is not merely a barrier to be overcome. It is the very path itself, the specific training ground you need to develop the strength and wisdom you currently lack. In the context of love, this means that a breakup, a painful disagreement, or a surge of jealousy is not a sign that your relationship is failing, but an invitation for it and for you to evolve. Consider the most common and often most feared relationship setback, a breakup. The immediate, overwhelming experience is one of loss, grief, and sometimes a crushing blow to your self-esteem. It is easy to fall into a narrative of failure, to see the end of the relationship as proof that you are unlovable or that love itself is impossible. The Stoic perspective offers a completely different interpretation. What if the breakup, as painful as it is not a failure but a necessary correction? What if it is the universe's way of closing a door that was leading you away from your own growth and toward a more authentic connection in the future? From this vantage point, the pain of loss becomes a powerful lesson in self-reliance. It forces you to stand on your own 2 feet, to rediscover who you are outside of the context of a couple, and to rebuild your life based on your own values and strengths. The obstacle of being alone becomes the way to cultivating a deeper, more secure relationship with yourself, the most important relationship you will ever have. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" the Stoic asks, "What virtue can I practice here?" The answer might be courage to face the loneliness without running into another relationship as a distraction. It might be wisdom to reflect honestly on what you contributed to the dynamic and what you truly need moving forward. Now, let's apply this same lens to a smaller, more frequent occurrence, a disagreement. In the heat of an argument, it's natural to see your partner as the obstacle. Their stubbornness, their different perspective, their emotional reaction feels like the problem standing in the way of harmony. But what if the disagreement itself is the way? What if it is the precise opportunity you both need to learn the art of true communication? A calm, easy conversation requires no special skill. It is in the friction of a disagreement that you are given a chance to practice patience by truly listening instead of waiting to speak. You are invited to practice courage by expressing a vulnerable feeling instead of launching an attack. You are challenged to practice justice by sincerely trying to see the world from your partner's point of view. The obstacle of conflict becomes the training ground for the virtues that will make your relationship infinitely stronger. Without these moments of friction, your relationship would remain on a superficial level, never developing the depth that comes from successfully navigating differences. Even an internal and often destructive emotion like jealousy can be reframed as an opportunity. When you feel that familiar green-eyed monster stirring, the automatic reaction is to project the problem outward, to feel threatened by someone else, to want to control your partner's actions. The Stoic approach turns the gaze inward. Jealousy is not really about the other person. It is a blazing signal flare illuminating your own deepest insecurities. It is a messenger pointing directly at a wound that needs your attention, a fear of abandonment, a feeling of inadequacy, a lack of trust in your own worth. The obstacle of jealousy, therefore, becomes the way to profound self-knowledge and healing. It asks you the vital question, what virtue can I practice here? The answer is likely self-discipline, to manage the initial panic, and courage to confront the insecurity within yourself rather than trying to police the world outside. By treating jealousy as a teacher about your inner landscape instead of a verdict on your relationship, you transform a toxic emotion into a catalyst for building unshakable self-confidence. The practical application of this lesson is a simple but powerful mental habit. The next time you face any relationship difficulty, from a minor irritation to a major crisis, pause and consciously ask this Stoic question: how can this obstacle serve as my way forward? What specific virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance is this situation calling on me to develop? This single question changes your entire orientation from passive victim to active participant in your own growth. It shifts your energy from complaining about the problem to creatively engaging with the solution, which is always your own response. A financial strain becomes an opportunity to practice teamwork and frugality. A period of long distance becomes a masterclass in trust and creative connection. A partner's success that triggers your own feelings of inadequacy becomes a chance to practice the virtue of magnanimity, generously celebrating their achievements while recommitting to your own path. By seeking the opportunity in every setback, you stop seeing your relationship as a delicate thing that needs to be protected from all hardship and start seeing it as a resilient partnership that is forged and strengthened through it. You lead in love by embracing every challenge as a necessary part of the journey, understanding that the rough patches are not detours from the path of a great relationship, they are the path itself. Now, after learning to see setbacks as opportunities, we must confront one of the biggest thieves of present happiness, the ghost of the past. This brings us to our 12th lesson, which is to let go of the past with equanimity. Equanimity is that Stoic state of mental calmness and composure, especially in the face of difficulty. When applied to the history of a relationship, it is the practice of accepting what has already happened without allowing it to dictate your emotional weather today. We all carry baggage. It might be the memory of a betrayal from a current partner, the lingering hurt from a previous relationship, or even the weight of our own past mistakes. The natural, almost instinctual reaction is to cling to these events. We replay the scene in our minds, re-feeling the anger, the humiliation, the pain, as if by holding on tightly, we can somehow change the outcome or protect ourselves from future harm. But the Stoics, with their unflinching realism, would point out a simple, undeniable truth. The past is utterly and completely unchangeable. What is done is done. Clinging to it is like trying to steer a car by staring intently into the rearview mirror. You are doomed to crash because you are not paying attention to the road ahead. This clinging, this refusal to release the past, acts as a slow-acting poison in a relationship. When you hold onto a past hurt, you are essentially building a fortress around your heart made of old bricks of resentment. You might think this fortress protects you, but in reality, it only isolates you. It filters every present moment interaction with your partner through the lens of that old wound. If they are quiet one evening, you don't see a tired person, you see a confirmation of their past emotional withdrawal. If they forget an errand, it's not a simple oversight, it's proof of their inherent unreliability, just like last time. This is a form of emotional kidnapping. You are taking an innocent person in the present and holding them hostage for the crimes of the past. It creates a dynamic where your partner can never truly be forgiven, never truly get a fresh start, because they are forever paying a debt that can never be fully paid. This is not leadership in love, it is being a prisoner of your own history. So, how do we practice this release? The Stoic method is a threefold process: acceptance, learning, and conscious release. The first and most difficult step is radical acceptance. This means looking directly at the past event and simply acknowledging, without sugarcoating or denial, that it happened. Say to yourself, it is a fact that this betrayal occurred. It is a fact that I was deeply hurt. It is a fact that I made that mistake. This is not about approving of what happened. It is about ceasing to argue with reality. Arguing with a fact that is already set in stone is a guaranteed way to suffer. Acceptance is the act of laying down your weapons in a war that is already over. Once you have achieved a stance of acceptance, you can move to the second step, extracting the lesson. The Stoics viewed every experience, especially the painful ones, as a potential teacher. Ask yourself, what did this event teach me about myself, about my needs, about my boundaries? What did it reveal about communication or trust? Perhaps a past betrayal taught you the vital importance of clear boundaries and honest dialogue. Perhaps a mistake you made revealed a personal insecurity that you need to address. The key here is to mine the past for its wisdom, not its bitterness. You are not replaying the event to re-experience the pain, but to analyze it with the cool detachment of a scientist studying data. What valuable information can be gleaned from this experience that will make me wiser, stronger, and a better partner in the future? By finding the lesson, you transform the past hurt from a pointless source of suffering into a valuable contribution to your growth. The event now has a purpose. It has served you. The third and final step is the conscious, deliberate act of release. This is where equanimity is actively chosen. After you have accepted the fact and learned the lesson, you must make the decision to let the emotional charge around the event dissipate. This is an internal ceremony of forgiveness. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not about exonerating the other person for their actions. It is about liberating yourself from the prison of resentment. It is a selfish and entirely necessary act of self-care. You can think of it as setting down a heavy burden you have been carrying for miles. You acknowledge that the burden taught you something about strength, but now it is only weighing you down and preventing you from moving forward freely. The practice of release can be as simple as a mental declaration. I accept that this happened. I have learned what I need to learn from it. I now choose to release the anger and the hurt. I let it go to make space for peace in my present moment. You may need to do this not just once, but many times, each time the memory arises, gently reminding yourself that its purpose has been served and its power over you is revoked. This practice is particularly crucial when considering the possibility of rebuilding trust after a significant breach. If a couple decides to move forward after an event like infidelity, the partner who was hurt cannot simply pretend it never happened. That is denial, not equanimity. But they also cannot hold it over their partner's head indefinitely. That is a life sentence for both people. The path forward requires the wounded partner to consciously practice these steps, fully accepting the reality of the event, identifying the lessons about boundaries and communication, and then, over time and with demonstrated change from their partner, making the daily choice to release the resentment bit by bit. This does not mean forgetting. It means remembering without the punishing emotional attachment. It means allowing the past to be a chapter in your story, but refusing to let it be the title of your book. By letting go of the past with equanimity, you reclaim your present moment power. You create emotional space for new experiences, for fresh joys, and for a love that is defined not by what went wrong, but by what you are building right now together in the forgiving light of the present. This relentless focus on managing our own inner world rather than trying to control the external one brings us to a lesson that can dissolve an enormous amount of relationship frustration. The 13th Stoic principle is to focus exclusively on your role, not your partner's. The ancient Stoics saw life as a play, and each of us as an actor assigned a specific part. Your only job, your sole responsibility, is to play your role to the best of your ability with virtue and integrity. You have no control over the script, the other actors, or the reviews. Your power lies solely in how you choose to perform your own part. In the theater of love, this means your entire focus should be on being the best partner you can be: kind, patient, honest, and supportive. Your partner, in this analogy, is another actor with their own role, their own lines to learn, and their own performance to give. You cannot step onto the stage and deliver their lines for them, no matter how much you might wish they would say something different. We constantly fall into the trap of director mode, trying to manage our partner's performance. We notice a flaw in their character or a habit we dislike, and we make it our personal mission to correct it. We offer unsolicited advice, we nag, we criticize, all with the underlying belief that if we can just get them to change, then the relationship will be perfect. This is an exercise in exhausting futility that the Stoics would identify as a fundamental misplacement of effort. It is a violation of the dichotomy of control, pouring your precious energy into a domain, another person's behavior, that is ultimately not yours to command. Think of it like trying to tend a garden by only ever staring over the fence at your neighbor's plot, worrying about their weeds while your own plants wither from neglect. The Stoic shift is a radical turning inward. It is the decision to stop being the director of your partner's life and to become the master of your own conduct. Imagine a common source of tension. One partner is more meticulous about household cleanliness than the other. The one who values order might spend immense emotional energy noticing every misplaced item, feeling a simmering resentment each time a dish is left in the sink. They might try to control their partner's behavior through reminders, sighs, or outright complaints. This focus on their partner's role, the messy actor, only creates conflict and distance. The Stoic approach would be to turn the spotlight back onto oneself. The question changes from "why can't they be neater?" to "how can I play my role with virtue in this situation?" This opens up a world of empowered choices. You can choose the virtue of patience, accepting that your partner has a different standard. You can choose the virtue of courage and have a calm, non-accusatory conversation about finding a compromise that respects both your needs. You can choose the virtue of kindness and simply put the dish away yourself without attaching a story of resentment to the action. By perfecting your own conduct, by acting with patience, courage, and kindness regardless of their actions, you are tending to your own garden. And a well-tended garden has a curious way of inspiring the neighbor to pick up their own rake. This is not about becoming a passive doormat. It is about exercising power where you truly have it. You cannot make your partner more attentive, more ambitious, or more communicative, but you can become a more attentive listener yourself. You can cultivate your own ambitions and lead by inspired example. You can practice impeccable communication, expressing your needs clearly and calmly. This shift from external focus to internal mastery is profoundly attractive. When you stop trying to fix your partner and instead radiate the qualities you wish to see, you often find that those qualities begin to reflect back to you. Your consistent calm can have a soothing effect on their anxiety. Your reliable honesty can build a foundation of trust that encourages them to be more open. Your unwavering commitment to your own virtues creates a field of positive peer pressure, inviting them to rise to the occasion without a single word of demand. This is how you lead in love, not by issuing commands, but by embodying the standard. Shifting our focus from managing difficulties to actively cultivating joy, we arrive at a practice so simple yet so profoundly transformative that it can quite literally rewire your brain for a happier relationship. This is our 14th lesson: practice gratitude daily for your partner. In the Stoic worldview, gratitude was not just a polite sentiment. It was a fundamental discipline, a way of seeing the world that recognizes the abundance of good that already exists, especially in our closest relationships. The Stoics understood that human perception has a natural and powerful tendency toward what modern psychology calls a negativity bias. Our brains are wired like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. A single critical comment from a partner can occupy our minds for hours, while a dozen kind gestures throughout the day can slip by unnoticed and unappreciated. This isn't a character flaw, it's a survival mechanism honed over millennia to prioritize threats. But in the context of a modern relationship, this ancient wiring becomes a recipe for taking each other for granted and allowing a slow drip of resentment to erode the foundation of love. A daily gratitude practice is the deliberate, conscious antidote to this automatic negativity. It is the intentional effort to spot the good, to name it, and to savor it. This isn't about ignoring real problems or plastering a fake smile over genuine issues. It is about ensuring that the positive aspects of your relationship receive at least as much of your attention as the negative ones, counterbalancing the brain's innate tilt toward complaint. When you make a habit of looking for specific things to appreciate about your partner, you are essentially training your mind to see them in a new light. You are shifting from a default state of criticism where you notice what's missing or wrong to a default state of appreciation where you actively seek out what is present and right. This simple shift has a seismic effect on the emotional climate of your relationship. The key to making this practice effective is to move beyond vague generalities. Saying to yourself, "I'm grateful for my partner," is a nice start, but it lacks the power to create real neural change. The magic lies in the specific, concrete details. Instead of a broad appreciation, your daily reflection should sound more like this: "I am grateful for the way my partner made coffee for me this morning without being asked." Or, "I am grateful for the patience they showed when listening to me vent about my difficult day." Or even, "I am grateful for their unique sense of humor that made me laugh uncontrollably during dinner." By focusing on a particular action, a quality, or a moment, you are not just thinking a positive thought, you are reliving a positive experience. You are activating the sensory and emotional centers of your brain, strengthening the neural pathways associated with feeling connected, loved, and happy with this specific person. This process constantly renews your feelings of affection, preventing them from being buried under the mundane clutter of daily life. Consider the alternative. Without this practice, it's easy for a partner to slowly fade into the background, becoming a familiar piece of furniture in the landscape of your life. Their consistent kindness becomes expected, their reliability becomes boring, and their endearing quirks can morph into annoying habits. Gratitude is the spotlight that pulls them back onto the stage of your awareness, reminding you that this person is not an obligation but a gift. It transforms ordinary moments into small miracles. The fact that this particular human being chooses day after day to share their life with you is not a given. When you pause to genuinely appreciate the warmth of their hand in yours, the sound of their voice, or the simple fact that they took out the trash, you are infusing these mundane interactions with meaning. A relationship sustained by this kind of conscious appreciation cannot help but become a source of deep and enduring joy, because you are both actively participating in creating that joy, one acknowledged blessing at a time. To integrate this into your life, try a simple ritual. Perhaps each evening before you fall asleep, you and your partner can share one specific thing you are grateful for about each other that day. Or you might keep a small gratitude journal dedicated solely to your relationship, writing down 3 specific appreciations every morning. The format matters less than the consistency. The goal is to make the search for the good a permanent part of your mental routine. Over time, this habit does more than just improve your mood, it transforms your perception of your partner. You begin to see them not for their flaws and failings, but for their countless acts of love, both large and small, that you had previously allowed to become invisible. This is the ultimate act of leading in love, by choosing every single day to see the best in the person you love, and in doing so, helping them to become that best version of themselves. This ability to focus on our own role and cultivate gratitude hinges entirely on a skill that sits at the very core of Stoic practice, and indeed at the heart of emotional maturity in love. This is our 15th lesson, the conscious choice to respond rather than react. The concept is beautifully captured in a powerful observation often attributed to the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl, who said, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." This space, that brief, critical moment of pause, is the difference between being a puppet jerked around by your emotions and being the author of your own story in love. In the dynamic flow of a relationship, stimuli are constant. Your partner makes a sarcastic comment, they forget an important date, they seem distracted when you're sharing exciting news. Each of these events is a stimulus. Our primitive limbic brain is wired for speed, not for wisdom. It perceives a potential threat and instantly activates a reaction: anger, defensiveness, hurtful retaliation. This reaction is automatic, unconscious, and almost reflexive. It's designed for survival, but it is disastrous for connection. When we react, we are essentially on autopilot, reenacting old patterns learned from childhood or previous hurts. We are not choosing our behavior, our history and our fears are choosing it for us. The result is the same painful cycle of conflict, where both partners feel attacked and misunderstood. The Stoic practice, and the essence of Frankl's wisdom, is to deliberately widen that space between the stimulus and the response. It is to insert a moment of conscious awareness into the automatic chain of events. Imagine your partner says something that stings. The stimulus is their words. You feel the immediate surge of heat, the tightening in your chest, the reaction beginning to form. This is the critical juncture. Instead of letting that reaction fly out of your mouth, you create the space. You might do this by taking a single, deep breath. You might mentally say to yourself, pause. You might even physically step away for a moment by saying, "I need a second to process that." This pause is not a sign of weakness or passivity. It is an act of immense strength. It is the moment you reclaim your sovereignty from your automatic emotions. Within that expanded space, you move from being a reactor to a responder. A reaction is emotional and impulsive. A response is thoughtful and virtuous. Now, with a sliver of distance, you can engage your faculty of reason. You can ask yourself Stoic questions. What is the virtuous way to handle this? What is the judgment I'm making about their words that is causing my anger? Is that judgment absolutely true? What might be happening for them that I'm not seeing? This shift allows you to choose an action that aligns with your highest values and the long-term health of your relationship, rather than an action that merely vents your short-term frustration. Instead of yelling back with a cutting remark, a reaction, you might choose to respond with calm curiosity. What you just said really hurt. I want to understand where you're coming from. Can you help me understand what's behind that comment? This practice transforms conflict from a battle to be won into a problem to be understood and solved together. When you respond instead of react, you de-escalate the situation. You signal to your partner that you value the relationship more than you value being right in the moment. You invite dialogue instead of a duel. This is where true growth and freedom reside, just as Frankl promised. The freedom is not freedom from having a partner who sometimes says or does things that upset you. That is an impossible fantasy. The freedom is in your sovereign power to choose how those upsets will affect you and how you will behave in return. This is the ultimate form of leading in love, leading yourself first, with such discipline and wisdom that your presence becomes a calming, stabilizing force. You become the partner who can handle difficulty with grace, who can absorb a momentary hurt, without Chinese letter, retaliating, and who consistently chooses a path that builds connection rather than burns it down. By mastering the space between stimulus and response, you stop being a passenger in the turbulent vehicle of your relationship and finally take the wheel, steering confidently toward a destination of mutual respect and enduring love. This brings us to a principle that cuts to the very heart of what makes a relationship endure, challenging one of the most common and damaging myths about love in our modern culture. Our 16th lesson is that love is an action, not just a feeling. We are often taught through movies and songs that love is something that happens to us, a powerful, overwhelming emotion that sweeps us off our feet. While that initial spark of feeling is undeniably real and wonderful, the Stoics would argue that to build a life with someone on that feeling alone is like building a castle on a cloud. Feelings are fleeting, they ebb and flow with our energy levels, our stress, and the countless other variables of daily life. If your commitment to your partner is dependent on consistently feeling a certain intense, passionate way, you are setting yourselves up for failure because no one can sustain a peak emotional state indefinitely. The Stoic reframe is both more demanding and more empowering. They saw love not as a noun, a static state you fall into, but as a verb, a continuous series of conscious choices and deliberate behaviors. Love is what you do far more than it is what you feel in any given moment. It is the active practice of showing up even when you are tired. It is the discipline of choosing patience when you feel irritable. It is the conscious decision to act with kindness when your partner is difficult. It is the daily effort to truly listen when you would rather interrupt. This perspective transforms love from a passive experience into an active craft, something you practice and perfect over a lifetime. The feeling of love is the beautiful, warm reward that often follows the action of loving, but it is the action itself that is the bedrock of the relationship. Think about the difference this makes during an inevitable rough patch. Imagine you have had a brutally long day, you are drained and short-tempered, and you come home to find your partner is also in a low mood. The feeling of love might be inaccessible at that moment. You might not feel particularly affectionate or connected. If your definition of love is tied solely to that feeling, you might withdraw, become cold, or decide you are falling out of love. But if you understand love as an action, you have a different path available. Even though you don't feel loving, you can still choose to act in a loving way. You can choose to make a cup of tea for them without being asked. You can choose to give them a hug even when your own body feels heavy. You can choose to say, "It sounds like you had a tough day too." Do you want to talk about it? These are not fake actions, they are the very substance of love. They are the bricks and mortar that build a resilient partnership. By performing the action, you often find that the feeling follows. The simple act of making that tea can trigger a moment of connection that melts the stress and rekindles the warmth you thought was gone. This approach to love as a disciplined practice provides incredible stability. When your relationship is anchored in your consistent actions rather than your inconsistent feelings, it is no longer a roller coaster. The inevitable disagreements, the periods of stress, the mundane routines, none of these can threaten the foundation, because the foundation is made of the daily choices you both make to show up for each other. It is the choice to speak respectfully during a disagreement, even when you are angry. It is the choice to prioritize your partner's important event, even when you have a busy schedule. It is the choice to forgive a small offense quickly rather than holding onto a grudge. Each of these actions is a deposit into the emotional bank account of the relationship, building a reserve of trust and security that you can both draw upon during truly difficult times. This is what it means to lead in love, to take responsibility for your half of the dynamic by consistently choosing the loving action, especially on the days when the loving feeling is hardest to find. Shifting from the internal discipline of choosing our responses, we now turn to an essential external expression of that self-mastery, the practice of setting healthy boundaries. This 17th lesson shows us how Stoic virtue, specifically justice and temperance, provides the perfect framework for defining what is and is not acceptable for our well-being. Many people mistakenly view boundaries as selfish walls built to keep others out, or as ultimatums delivered in anger. From a Stoic perspective, however, a boundary is neither an attack nor a rejection. It is a loving and rational act of self-definition, a clear statement of the conditions under which you can be your best self within the relationship. It is an application of justice because it honors your own worth as equal to your partner's, and it requires temperance to communicate it without the destructive heat of blame or resentment. Imagine your personal well-being as a beautiful, sacred garden. This garden is your responsibility to tend. You are the only one who can pull the weeds, water the plants, and ensure it receives enough sun. A healthy boundary is not a tall, imposing fence designed to isolate your garden from the world. Rather, it is a clear, well-marked pathway that shows others how to visit your garden without trampling the flowers. It is a gentle but firm sign that says, "Please walk here," preventing damage while still inviting connection. Without these pathways, people, even those with the best intentions, will inevitably wander in and accidentally cause harm. It is unjust to both yourself and your partner to leave your garden unprotected and then resent them for the damage they didn't know they were causing. Setting a boundary is therefore an act of profound care for your own garden and for the relationship itself, as it prevents the slow accumulation of silent resentment that can poison the soil of your connection. The Stoic virtues guide every step of this process. Justice calls you to fairness. You have a right to your own peace, your own values, and your own emotional safety, just as your partner has a right to theirs. To fail to set a boundary is an injustice to yourself. It is a quiet agreement to be treated in a way that erodes your spirit. At the same time, temperance is essential in the delivery. This virtue moderates your impulses, ensuring that you communicate your boundary not from a place of explosive anger or passive-aggressive punishment, but from a centered place of calm conviction. The goal is not to make your partner feel bad or to prove a point. The goal is simply to state a truth about your needs for the health of the partnership. Let's make this practical. How do you communicate a boundary with Stoic clarity and kindness? The formula is simple, direct, and free from blame. It focuses on your experience and your needs rather than your partner's faults. Instead of saying, "You're always on your phone when I'm talking to you, you're so rude," which is an attacking judgment, you would apply the principles of clear seeing and calm response. A Stoic boundary statement would sound more like this: "I feel unheard and disconnected when I'm sharing something important and the phone is out. For me to feel engaged in our conversations, I need us to both put our devices away. This is important for my sense of connection with you." Notice the structure. It states the observable fact, explains its impact on you using I statements, and then clearly defines the need or limit. The phrase, "This is not acceptable to me," is not a threat. It is a calm, factual declaration of your personal standard, much like stating, "This soil requires sunlight to thrive." This approach respects both parties. It respects you because you are honoring your own needs without apology. It respects your partner because you are giving them clear, actionable information rather than a vague complaint or a character assassination. You are treating them as a reasonable adult who is capable of understanding and respecting your needs when they are communicated clearly. Of course, the true test of a boundary comes after it is set. A boundary without consequence is merely a suggestion. If you state that a certain behavior is not acceptable for your well-being, and your partner continues that behavior, justice and temperance must guide your next step. The Stoic response is not to escalate into anger or drama. It is to calmly and consistently enforce the boundary through your own actions. This might mean calmly removing yourself from the situation when the boundary is crossed, not as a punishment, but as a natural consequence that protects your garden. By doing so, you are not trying to control your partner, you are controlling your own exposure to what harms you. This consistent action teaches others how to treat you far more powerfully than any angry word ever could. Ultimately, setting boundaries with kindness is a supreme act of leadership in love. It creates a relationship based on mutual respect and clear understanding, where both partners feel safe, valued, and empowered to grow. This ability to choose our responses and set healthy boundaries naturally culminates in one of the most impactful roles we can play for our partner, becoming a true source of calm in a world that is often anything but. Our 18th lesson is to consciously strive to be a stabilizing force, an oasis of reason rather than a generator of drama. This draws directly on the powerful Stoic metaphor of the inner citadel, the idea that through philosophy and practice we can cultivate an unshakable core of peace within ourselves, a fortress of the mind that remains standing even when the emotional storms of life rage outside its walls. In the context of a relationship, this isn't about being emotionally distant or detached. It's about having such command over your own inner state that your very presence has a grounding, soothing effect on the entire dynamic, especially during moments of high stress or conflict. Think about the last time you and your partner had a serious disagreement. The energy in the room often becomes charged, a feedback loop of anxiety, frustration, and hurt. In such moments, it takes only one person to escalate the situation from a discussion into a full-blown argument. If both partners are reactive, the conflict quickly spirals out of control, with words spoken that cannot be taken back and wounds inflicted that take time to heal. But what if just one person makes a different choice? What if, instead of meeting your partner's raised voice with your own, you consciously lower yours? Instead of responding to an accusation with a counter-accusation, you take a breath and gently steer the conversation toward understanding. This is the practice of being a source of calm. You are not surrendering or admitting defeat. You are making the strategic and virtuous decision to de-escalate. You are breaking the destructive feedback loop by refusing to participate in it. In doing so, you become a leader in the truest sense, guiding the interaction away from the rocks and back toward safer waters. This role is incredibly valuable because it creates what psychologists call psychological safety, the feeling that it is safe to be vulnerable, to express difficult feelings, and to make mistakes without fear of harsh judgment or retaliation. When you are a consistent source of calm, your partner learns that they can bring their anxieties, their fears, and even their anger to you without triggering a volcanic eruption. They learn that your love is a safe harbor, a place where storms can be weathered together rather than a place where storms are amplified. This safety is the bedrock of deep intimacy. It allows for true vulnerability because when we feel safe, we can finally let our guards down and show our authentic selves, flaws and all. A relationship without this safety is like a tree constantly battered by high winds. It may survive, but it will be stunted and unable to grow to its full, majestic potential. By being the calm, you provide the still, nourishing environment where love can truly flourish. So, how do we practically build this inner citadel and become that stabilizing presence? It begins long before any conflict arises with the daily cultivation of your own equanimity. This is the quiet work of managing your own stress levels through practices like mindfulness, adequate rest, and physical activity. It involves regularly practicing the Stoic exercises we've discussed, like the view from above or negative visualization, so that when a challenge arrives, you are not encountering these tools for the first time in a state of panic. You are drawing from a well of practiced calm. Then, in the heat of the moment, your strategy is simple but requires immense discipline. Focus on your breath and your body. When you feel the urge to react, consciously slow your breathing. This has a direct physiological effect, calming your nervous system and creating the crucial space for reason to intervene. Your goal is not to win the argument, but to understand the problem. You can use phrases that act as circuit breakers for escalation, such as, I want to understand what you're feeling. Can you help me see it from your side? Or let's both take a breath. I think we're on the same team here, just looking at this differently. Being a source of calm also means mastering the art of listening to understand rather than listening to rebut. So often in arguments, we are not truly hearing our partner. We are simply using the time they are speaking to formulate our own defense. A calm leader resists this impulse. They give their partner their full, quiet attention, demonstrating through their body language and their silence that what is being said matters. This act of deep listening is in itself a powerful de-escalator, as it makes your partner feel valued and heard, often diffusing half of their frustration immediately. Ultimately, embodying this calm is one of the greatest gifts you can give to your relationship. It transforms conflicts from threatening events into opportunities for deeper connection. It demonstrates that your commitment to the well-being of the partnership is stronger than your need to be right in any single moment. By building your inner citadel, you stop being just a participant in the relationship and become its guardian, ensuring that no matter what chaos the world brings, the space you share with your partner remains a sanctuary of peace, respect, and unwavering support. Now, let's explore one of the most challenging yet liberating practices in the Stoic toolkit, the act of forgiveness. In our journey to lead in love, we inevitably encounter moments of deep hurt, betrayals of trust, harsh words spoken in anger, or actions that leave us feeling wounded and resentful. The conventional view of forgiveness often feels like a moral demand, an obligation to absolve someone of their wrongdoing, which can make the very idea seem unfair, even repulsive. Why should we forgive someone who has caused us pain? The Stoic approach to this dilemma is radically different and profoundly empowering. They reframe forgiveness not as something you do for the other person, but as a strategic, rational act of self-liberation. It is the conscious decision to stop allowing a past event to continue poisoning your present peace. As the saying goes, holding onto a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. You are the one who continues to suffer, replaying the hurt and keeping the wound fresh long after the initial injury has passed. The Stoics, with their unwavering focus on what is within our control, would ask a simple, piercing question: who is being harmed by your ongoing resentment? The person who wronged you may have moved on with their life, perhaps completely unaware of the turmoil you are holding inside. Meanwhile, you are carrying the heavy burden of anger, allowing it to steal your joy, disrupt your sleep, and color your interactions with a bitterness that pushes away the very love you seek. This is why forgiveness, from a Stoic perspective, is ultimately a selfish act in the most healthy and necessary sense of the word. It is the decision to reclaim your own mental and emotional real estate. It is the choice to evict a troublesome tenant who has been living in your mind rent-free, causing chaos and distress. You are not condoning the wrong that was done. You are simply recognizing that continuing to punish yourself for it is an irrational and unnecessary form of self-harm. To understand this fully, we must return to the core Stoic principle of the dichotomy of control. The past action that hurt you is firmly in the category of things you cannot change. It is a fixed point in history. Your resentment, however, exists in the present moment, and it falls squarely within your domain of control. It is a judgment you are actively maintaining. Each time you revisit the memory and rekindle the anger, you are making a choice, however unconscious, to continue suffering. Forgiveness, then, is the virtuous act of changing that judgment. It is the decision to say, "This event happened, it caused me pain, but I now choose to release my grip on the anger associated with it, because holding onto it only harms me and prevents me from living fully in the present." This is an act of supreme wisdom and courage. It takes wisdom to see the truth that resentment only hurts the holder, and it takes courage to make the difficult choice to let it go. So, what does the practical process of Stoic forgiveness look like? It is not a single moment of magical absolution, but a disciplined practice that unfolds in stages. It begins, as always, with acceptance. You must first fully acknowledge the reality of what occurred without minimization or denial. Say to yourself, "It is true that I was hurt. Their action was unfair and my pain is valid." This step is crucial because forgiveness cannot bypass genuine hurt. It must move through it. Next, you shift your focus from the other person's actions to your own internal state. Ask yourself the Stoic question: is this resentment serving my goal of living a virtuous and peaceful life? The answer will invariably be no. Then, make the conscious choice for your own freedom. This can be a private, internal declaration. You might visualize the resentment as a heavy chain you have been carrying, and then visualize yourself setting it down and walking away. You are not saying what happened was okay. You are declaring that you will no longer allow it to dictate your emotional well-being. This practice is especially vital when considering reconciliation. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two separate things. Forgiveness is an internal process that you do for yourself, entirely within your control. Reconciliation is an external process that involves the other person and requires their genuine remorse and demonstrated change in behavior. You can absolutely forgive someone for your own peace without necessarily allowing them back into a position where they can hurt you again. This distinction is where justice and temperance guide your actions. Justice demands that you protect yourself from future harm, while temperance ensures that your boundaries are set calmly and rationally, not from a place of vengeful punishment. By forgiving internally, you cleanse yourself of the toxic energy of resentment, which then allows you to make clear-headed decisions about reconciliation based on present-moment reality, not past pain. When you forgive as an act of self-liberation, you break the invisible chain that binds you to the person who hurt you. You reclaim your power to find happiness in the present, unburdened by the ghosts of yesterday. This is how you lead in love, by having the strength to heal your own wounds, ensuring you can approach your relationship and your life from a place of wholeness and peace, rather than from a fortress of past grievances. This brings us to a principle that redefines one of the most misunderstood concepts in personal development, connecting it directly to our capacity for healthy relationships. Our 20th lesson is that true self-love is actually cultivated through self-discipline. In our modern culture, self-love is often portrayed as indulgence, a bubble bath, a shopping spree, or treating yourself to dessert. While these acts of kindness have their place, the Stoics would argue that this is a superficial and ultimately fragile version of self-love. If indulgence were the path to genuine self-worth, we would all feel fantastic after a day of doing nothing but what feels easy and pleasurable. Yet, that's often when feelings of guilt, laziness, and emptiness creep in. The Stoic understanding is far more profound and demanding. They saw true self-love not as the absence of hardship, but as the courageous presence of self-command. It is the daily practice of making choices that align with your long-term well-being and your deepest values, even when, and especially when, it is difficult. The connection is simple yet transformative. Every time you exercise discipline, you send a powerful message to your subconscious. When you choose to wake up early to work on a meaningful project instead of hitting the snooze button, you are not just managing your time, you are telling yourself, "My goals matter. I am worth the effort." When you choose a nutritious meal over junk food despite a craving, you are communicating, "My health is valuable, I respect this body." When you follow through on a commitment you made to yourself, like completing a workout or sticking to a budget, you are building a track record of self-trust. Each of these disciplined acts is a brick in the foundation of your self-respect. You are proving to yourself through action that you are a person who can be relied upon by you. This is the opposite of neediness. It is the cultivation of inner resourcefulness. A person who knows they can count on themselves does not enter relationships desperate for someone else to complete them or validate their existence. Contrast this with the individual who lacks this self-disciplinary foundation. Their concept of self-love might be entirely reactive and external. They may believe they will love themselves once they lose 10 pounds, once they get a promotion, or once they find a partner who affirms their worth. This conditional self-love is a precarious trap because it outsources your sense of value to outcomes you cannot fully control. The Stoic approach turns this completely inward. Your worth is not contingent on a number on a scale or a job title. It is demonstrated by the integrity of your actions in this very moment. The discipline required to resist a harmful impulse, to persist in the face of difficulty, or to dedicate yourself to a craft. These are the actions that generate authentic self-esteem. This is not about self-punishment or austerity. It is about honoring your potential. It is the deep, lasting love of a master craftsman for their craft, expressed through diligent daily practice. This internal foundation of self-respect is the absolute prerequisite for healthy romantic love. A relationship built by two individuals who have not mastered the art of loving themselves through discipline is often a partnership of lack. It can become a covert contract. I will love you so that you can make me feel whole. This dynamic breeds neediness, jealousy, and control, as each person looks to the other to fill a void they have not taken responsibility for filling themselves. However, when two people who have cultivated a sturdy sense of self-respect through their own disciplined choices come together, the dynamic is entirely different. They are not two halves seeking completion. They are two whole individuals choosing to share their abundance. They relate from a place of strength, not deficiency. Because their sense of worth is internally generated, they do not need constant reassurance from their partner. They can give love freely without the hidden agenda of needing it to be returned in a specific way to feel okay. They can handle disagreement without their self-image shattering because their value is not on the line. This is the ultimate expression of leading in love. It begins with leading your own life with such purpose and discipline that you have a surplus of love to give, rather than a deficit that demands to be filled. This brings us to a perspective that can transform even the most frustrating aspects of your relationship into the very fuel for your personal evolution. Our 21st lesson is to consciously see your partner as your most important teacher. It's a profound shift, moving from viewing your relationship as a source of personal fulfillment to recognizing it as a masterclass in character development. The Stoics believed that the world itself is a school, and every person we encounter is a potential instructor. But your intimate partner, they are the head teacher assigned to you for the most advanced coursework. Their unique personality, with all its quirks and challenges, is not a random accident or a cosmic error. It is a perfectly tailored curriculum designed to sand down your rough edges and polish your virtues. Their particular brand of stubbornness is a daily pop quiz in patience. Their way of seeing the world, so different from your own, is a semester-long seminar on tolerance and understanding. Their emotional needs, especially when they feel overwhelming, are practical labs in compassion. When you make this mental shift, you stop asking the consumerist question, "What can I get from this relationship?" and start asking the empowering Stoic question, "What virtue can I practice with this person right now?" Consider the specific lesson plans your partner might be offering. If your partner is highly meticulous and you are more free-spirited, the initial friction can feel like a constant battle over order versus spontaneity. You might see their need for a clean kitchen as controlling, and they might see your relaxed approach as irresponsible. This is where the reframe begins. Instead of seeing this difference as a problem to be solved, see it as a training ground. Their meticulous nature is your personal trainer for the virtue of discipline and attention to detail. Your spontaneous nature is their instructor in the art of flexibility and joy in the moment. The conflict is not a sign of incompatibility. It is the syllabus for a course you are both enrolled in, titled "Becoming a More Complete Human Being." Your partner's most challenging trait is, ironically, the very thing you need most to develop within yourself. Their stubbornness forces you to cultivate a patience deeper than you knew you possessed. Their emotional sensitivity demands that you develop a level of empathy you might otherwise have neglected. They are holding up a mirror to your own gaps in character, not to shame you, but to give you the opportunity to fill them. This approach fundamentally changes how you navigate disagreements. A typical argument often feels like a battle of wills, with each person trying to convince the other of their rightness. But when you see your partner as a teacher, the dynamic shifts from combat to collaboration. You can step back, even in the heat of the moment, and ask yourself a simple, grounding question. What is this situation trying to teach me? If your partner is criticizing you, instead of immediately becoming defensive, you can look for the kernel of truth in their feedback. Perhaps it is teaching you the humility to accept that you are not perfect. If your partner is withdrawn instead of feeling rejected, you can practice the courage to reach out with gentle curiosity, or the temperance to give them the space they need without making it about you. Every interaction becomes a chance to practice a specific virtue. Did they forget an important date? That's your lesson in forgiveness and the art of communicating your needs without blame. Are they anxious about a future event? That's your opportunity to practice being a calming, stabilizing presence. By focusing on your own curriculum, you disarm the conflict. You are no longer trying to change your professor, you are trying to pass the class. To make this practical, try a simple evening reflection. At the end of each day, ask yourself not what your partner did wrong, but what they taught you. Today, my partner's frustration with traffic taught me to practice keeping my own cool under pressure. Or, my partner's detailed planning for our vacation taught me the value of foresight and preparation. This ritual does two powerful things. First, it systematically retrains your brain to seek the gift in every challenge, transforming resentment into gratitude. Second, it empowers you by putting you back in the role of an active, eager student of life, rather than a passive victim of your partner's personality. When you begin to collect these lessons, you start to see your relationship as the most valuable personal growth program you will ever undertake. The goal is no longer to arrive at a conflict-free paradise, but to graduate together, having honed each other into wiser, more virtuous, and more deeply loving individuals. This is the ultimate partnership, a sacred alliance where you are both the student and the teacher, mutually committed to helping each other become the best versions of yourselves. While we have explored the power of thoughtful speech, there is an equally profound and often more challenging practice that lies in its deliberate absence. Our 20-second Stoic lesson invites us to embrace the transformative power of silence and deep listening. In a world saturated with noise and opinion, the ability to hold a quiet space is a rare and potent form of leadership in love. The Stoics were masters of mindful speech, understanding that words once released cannot be taken back. Seneca cautioned that we should be slow to speak, ensuring our words are necessary and true, for a thoughtless word spoken in haste can cause a wound that takes far longer to heal than the moment of anger that prompted it. This is not about withholding communication, but about elevating its quality by first mastering the discipline of silence. The most immediate and practical application of this principle is in the heart of conflict. When a disagreement flares up, our impulse is often to fight fire with fire, to escalate our volume and intensity to match or overpower our partners. The reflexive, hurtful comment sits on the tip of our tongue, begging to be unleashed in a misguided attempt to win the argument or express our pain. This is the critical juncture where Stoic wisdom intervenes. Choosing silence in that heated moment is not a sign of surrender or weakness. It is an act of immense strength and strategic intelligence. It is the conscious decision to de-escalate the situation by refusing to add more fuel to the emotional fire. By biting back that reactive comment and simply allowing a moment of quiet to settle between you, you break the destructive cycle of attack and counterattack. That silence creates a container, a pause where reason can reassert itself over raw emotion. It gives both you and your partner a chance to take a breath, to feel the weight of the tension, and to remember that you are on the same team, facing a problem together rather than viewing each other as the enemy. This practice of strategic silence is beautifully complemented by the active art of deep listening. Too often, when our partner is speaking, especially about a grievance, we are not truly listening to understand their experience. We are merely using the time their mouth is moving to internally formulate our defense, our rebuttal, or our own list of counter-complaints. We are preparing our case rather than opening our hearts. Deep listening is the radical opposite of this. It is the practice of giving your partner your complete, undivided attention, with the sole intention of understanding their world from the inside out. You set aside your own agenda, quiet the internal monologue, and focus entirely on their words, their tone, and the emotions behind what they are saying. Your body language becomes open and receptive, your eyes remain on theirs, and you resist the urge to interrupt even when you disagree. The impact of this kind of listening cannot be overstated. When a person feels truly heard, something almost magical happens. The defensive walls around their heart begin to soften. The urgency and intensity of their emotion often diminish because the primary goal of emotional expression is to be received and understood. By listening deeply, you are offering a profound gift of validation. You are communicating without a single word that their perspective matters, that their feelings are important to you, and that their experience is real. This simple act of focused attention conveys a level of respect that is far more powerful than any dramatic declaration of love. It says, "In this moment, you are the most important thing in my world." This often resolves the core of the conflict before a solution is even discussed, because the real need was not necessarily to win the argument, but to feel connected and understood. When both partners feel heard, the problem transforms from a battle to be won into a puzzle to be solved together, paving the way for genuine empathy and a collaborative resolution that strengthens the bond between you. And this leads us to the most powerful and direct form of influence we can possibly have within a relationship. The 23rd lesson is to lead by example, not by words. This is the ultimate Stoic leadership principle in love, cutting through the noise of negotiation and expectation to a far more profound truth. The most compelling argument you will ever make is the life you live. You cannot lecture a partner into being more patient. You can only demonstrate patience in the face of frustration. You cannot demand greater honesty through a list of rules. You can only be impeccably, sometimes uncomfortably, honest in your own communication. Influence in a relationship does not primarily flow from what you say you value, but from what your actions consistently prove you value. It is about embodying the very virtues you wish to see reflected in your partnership. Think about the ineffectiveness of the alternative. How often have you witnessed, or perhaps even engaged in, the dynamic where one partner is constantly pointing out the other's shortcomings? You need to be more supportive, they might say, while simultaneously being critical and dismissive of their partner's own struggles. We need to communicate better, they insist, yet they shut down or become defensive the moment a difficult topic arises. This creates a credibility gap that erodes trust and breeds resentment. Your partner hears the words, but they see the contradiction in your behavior. The message they receive is not about the importance of support or communication. It is about your desire for them to change to suit your needs. This approach feels like management, not leadership. It places you in the role of a critic or a supervisor, which is a surefire way to create distance and resistance, because no adult enjoys feeling micromanaged or judged. The Stoic shift is to turn the spotlight 100% onto yourself. It is to accept the challenging but empowering idea that the only person's behavior you can truly transform is your own. This is not a passive resignation, it is the most active stance you can take. Instead of focusing on what your partner should be doing, you pour all your energy into perfecting your own conduct according to the virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. If you wish your relationship had more patience, your work is to become the most patient person in the room, especially when your partner is being impatient. If you crave more kindness, your mission is to irradiate kindness even, and especially when you feel you have been treated unkindly. This is leading from the front. You are not shouting directions from the safety of the rear. You are walking the path first, showing through your own actions that it is safe, worthwhile, and possible. The effect this has is subtle but incredibly powerful. When you embody a virtue, you make it tangible. Your patience in a moment of shared stress is a living demonstration that another way is possible. Your calm refusal to escalate an argument offers a new pattern for engagement that your partner can choose to step into. Your unwavering honesty, even when it's difficult, builds a foundation of trust so solid that it invites reciprocal honesty. This is not about manipulation or trying to be perfect. It is about integrity, aligning your actions with your stated values so completely that your life becomes your message. Your partner is far more likely to be inspired by your example than they are to be coerced by your criticism. People change when they feel inspired, not when they feel inspected. By being the change, you create a magnetic pull toward positive growth, inviting your partner to rise to the level of your example because they want to, not because they have to. This principle extends to the very atmosphere of your relationship. If you want a partnership filled with joy and lightheartedness, you cannot demand that your partner be more fun. You must take the lead in cultivating joy yourself. You can initiate playful moments, share things that amuse you, and choose to find humor in minor frustrations. Your positive energy will become contagious. If you desire a relationship grounded in deep respect, you cannot command respect through ultimatums. You must embody respect in how you speak to your partner, how you speak about them to others, and how you honor their individuality and boundaries. Your consistent respectfulness teaches them through experience how it feels to be truly valued, and it naturally encourages them to mirror that behavior back to you. Leading by example is ultimately about taking full responsibility for your contribution to the relational ecosystem. You stop trying to change the weather and instead focus on being a steady, virtuous presence within it, knowing that your own light is the most reliable way to illuminate the path forward for you both. And this brings us to a perspective so profound that it can dissolve the very illusion of separation that gives rise to most of our relationship conflicts. Our 24th lesson is to remember the common humanity you share. The Stoics believed in a concept known as sympatheia, the interconnectedness of all rational beings as part of a single, universal community. While this might sound abstract, its application to your intimate relationship is incredibly practical and deeply humanizing. It is the conscious practice of expanding your circle of concern to see your partner not as a character in the story of your life, whose sole purpose is to support your happiness, but as a fellow human being, a separate and complete universe of hopes, fears, and struggles, who is navigating the complexities of existence just as you are. They are flawed and striving just like you. They have bad days just like you. They act from their own limited perspective, shaped by their unique history and wounds just like you do. This simple, humble recognition is the ultimate antidote to taking things personally. Consider what typically happens when your partner does something that irritates or hurts you. Your immediate, ego-centric interpretation is to see their action as a deliberate choice aimed at you. Their sharp tone becomes a personal attack. Their forgetfulness becomes a sign of disrespect directed specifically at you. Your mind constructs a narrative in which you are the central character, and their behavior is a plot point designed to either support or antagonize you. This is the default setting of the human mind, but it is a catastrophic misunderstanding of reality. The truth is, the vast majority of the time, your partner's behavior has very little to do with you. It is an outward expression of their own internal weather. A storm of stress from work, a lingering anxiety about their health, a feeling of inadequacy they can't shake, or simply the fatigue of being human. When they snap at you, it is far more likely to be the overflow of their own inner turmoil than a calculated decision to cause you pain. Seeing this requires a deliberate shift in perspective from a self-centered view to a human-centered view. This shift is the essence of compassion, and it is a muscle that can be strengthened with practice. The next time you feel that familiar surge of annoyance or hurt, pause and consciously invoke this lesson. Instead of asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" try asking, "What might they be going through that is causing them to act this way?" This is not about making excuses for genuinely harmful behavior, but about seeking understanding before passing judgment. Is your partner being distant because they are rejecting you, or because they are preoccupied with a problem they feel unable to solve? Are they being critical because they enjoy putting you down, or because they themselves are feeling insecure and are projecting that onto you? This reframe instantly softens your heart. It replaces the heat of personal offense with the cool clarity of empathy. You begin to see your partner not as an antagonist, but as a fellow traveler who is, in that moment, lost in their own woods, perhaps even calling out for help in a clumsy, counterproductive way. A powerful way to cultivate this is through a simple mental exercise. When you are feeling particularly frustrated, take a moment to consciously remember a time when you were not at your best. Recall a day when you were exhausted, overwhelmed, or scared, and you spoke harshly to someone you love or withdrew emotionally. Remember that in that moment you were not trying to be difficult, you were simply struggling to cope with your own inner experience. You were acting from your own limited perspective, doing the best you could with the emotional resources you had available at the time. Now look at your partner. Grant them the same grace you would grant yourself in that remembered moment. See them as another version of you, another fragile, imperfect human being doing their best to navigate a challenging world, often with the same limited tools and visibility that you possess. This practice of seeing your shared humanity is the ultimate act of Stoic justice, as it treats your partner's experience as equally valid and real as your own. The transformative power of this perspective lies in its ability to break the cycle of reactivity. When you stop taking your partner's behavior personally, you reclaim a tremendous amount of emotional freedom. Their bad mood no longer has to become your bad mood. Their moment of frustration no longer has to trigger your own defensiveness. You can observe their struggle with a sense of compassionate detachment, much like a lifeguard who sees a swimmer in distress. The lifeguard does not jump into the water and start flailing around with the swimmer. That would drown them both. Instead, they remain calm, assess the situation, and extend a steady hand or a flotation device. In your relationship, remembering your common humanity allows you to be that lifeguard. You can see that your partner is struggling in the water of their own emotions, and instead of jumping in to struggle with them, escalating the conflict, you can stay grounded on your own foundation of calm and extend the lifeline of understanding. You can say, "You seem really stressed, is there anything I can do?" or simply offer a quiet, non-judgmental presence. This approach does not enable bad behavior, it addresses the root cause of it. By responding to their struggle with compassion instead of reacting to their behavior with offense, you create the safety for true connection and healing to occur. You lead in love by seeing the human behind the action, and in doing so, you build a bridge over the chasm of misunderstanding. And so we arrive at the final and perhaps most encompassing lesson, one that ties every thread we've discussed into a single, life-changing perspective. The 25th Stoic lesson is to love the journey of your relationship, not just the destination. We are often sold a powerful cultural myth about love, the idea of happily ever after. This fantasy suggests that love is a finish line you cross, a permanent state of bliss achieved once you find the right person, resolve your major conflicts, or reach a certain milestone like marriage or buying a home. The problem with this destination-focused mindset is that it constantly pulls your attention away from the only place love can actually be experienced, the present moment. You start living in a state of perpetual preparation, thinking, "We'll be happy once we get through this stressful period," or "Everything will be perfect when we finally take that big vacation." The relationship itself becomes a project to be completed, rather than a dynamic, unfolding experience to be savored. The Stoics, with their unwavering focus on the here and now, offer a radical correction. They remind us that life is not a dress rehearsal for some future performance. The performance is happening right now, today, in the ordinary interactions of your daily life. When you apply this to your relationship, you realize that true love isn't a distant destination you are traveling toward. It is the very road you are walking on together. The goal is not to arrive at a conflict-free paradise, but to find profound meaning and joy in the act of walking itself, in the shared conversations over a messy breakfast, in the teamwork of folding laundry, in the comfort of a silent evening spent reading side by side, and even in the necessary friction of working through a disagreement. The journey, with all its bumps and beautiful vistas, is the entire point. The relationship is not a means to an end, it is the reward. This shift in focus transforms your entire experience. When you stop fixating on an idealized future, you begin to notice the countless small opportunities for connection that you were previously rushing past. The daily ritual of making coffee for each other in the morning is no longer a mundane task. It becomes a quiet, tangible expression of care. The process of planning a simple meal together becomes a miniature exercise in collaboration and shared purpose. Even a moment of frustration, like being stuck in traffic together, can become an opportunity to practice patience and find humor in the situation, strengthening your bond in a way that a perfectly smooth journey never could. By falling in love with the process, the daily practice of choosing kindness, the effort of communicating clearly, the discipline of listening deeply, you ensure that your happiness is not contingent on some future condition being met. Your fulfillment is generated continuously in the present through the very act of loving well. This mindset is the ultimate protection against the slow erosion of complacency that can affect long-term relationships. When the destination is your sole focus, it's easy to take the journey for granted. The person beside you can gradually become part of the scenery, their presence assumed rather than appreciated. But when the journey itself is the prize, you become a collector of precious moments. You learn to find beauty in the imperfect, messy, and wonderfully real tapestry of your shared life. You understand that a relationship is not a static noun but an active verb, a continuous unfolding that requires your attentive participation every single day. This is how you lead in love, by championing the present moment, by finding the extraordinary within the ordinary, and by recognizing that the greatest romance is not a fairy tale ending, but the courageous, daily choice to walk the path together, fully awake to every step. And so, as our exploration of these 25 Stoic lessons comes to a close, we arrive at the most important realization of all. True leadership in love has very little to do with managing your partner and everything to do with mastering yourself. It is not a quest for control over another person's heart, but a profound commitment to cultivating an unshakable inner citadel of virtue within your own. Each principle we've discussed, from the foundational dichotomy of control to the cosmic perspective of the view from above, serves as a single, sturdy brick in the construction of that citadel. When you build this inner fortress on the bedrock of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, you become a source of stability, clarity, and peace. You stop reacting to the ever-changing weather of external events and start responding from a deep, unwavering center. This self-mastery is the most attractive and influential force you can bring to a relationship, because it creates a safe harbor where authentic love can not only survive but truly thrive. This journey transforms love from a fragile emotion that depends on perfect conditions into a resilient, conscious practice that you engage in day after day. It shifts the focus from what you can get from the relationship to what you can bring to it. You learn to see your partner not as a supporting character in your story, but as a fellow student and teacher in the sacred classroom of life. Challenges cease to be threats and become instead the very training grounds where your character is forged and your connection is strengthened. Embracing this Stoic path means falling in love with the entire journey, the smooth paths and the rocky climbs alike, understanding that each step, each moment of chosen patience, each act of conscious kindness is the very substance of a meaningful shared life. The destination is not a mythical happily ever after, but the profound satisfaction of knowing you are walking the path with integrity, courage, and an open heart. Now, the wisdom of these lessons is not meant to be simply understood, it is meant to be lived. The philosophy of Stoicism is a practical toolkit, and its true power is only unlocked through consistent application. So, here is your call to action. Do not feel overwhelmed by the prospect of integrating all 25 lessons at once. Lasting change is built one deliberate choice at a time. This week, I want you to choose just one lesson that resonated most deeply with you. Perhaps it is the practice of pausing before you react, creating that vital space between stimulus and response. Maybe it is committing to a daily gratitude practice, specifically naming one thing you appreciate about your partner each evening. Or it could be the courageous work of setting a single, healthy boundary with kindness and clarity. Whatever you choose, make it your focus, practice it with intention, observe how it shifts your interactions, and notice the quiet empowerment that comes from leading yourself first. We would love to hear about your journey. In the comments below, share which one lesson you have chosen to work on this week and why it spoke to you. Your insights will inspire and encourage this entire community as we all learn to lead in love together. Remember, the most significant relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. By committing to your own growth and virtue, you are not only becoming a better partner, you are creating a life of profound purpose and peace. The power to build a love that is both passionate and enduring, both resilient and deeply joyful, has been within you all along. It starts with the choice to lead yourself. Thank you for walking this path.